They may not look like warriors, but they are. Amal Clooney and her client Nadia, an Iraqi farm girl until ISIS devastated her life and thousands of others.
I can't imagine anything worse being done by one human to another.
Together, they are taking on ISIS, urging the UN to investigate and ultimately try ISIS commanders for genocide.
أنا ناجية من الإبادة اليزيدية ولاجئة الآن. أنا فتاة ريفية وجدت نفسها كيف سلبت منها حياتها الحرة الممتلئة بالأحلام.
I think we both understand who we're up against. I don't think either of us are deterred by that just because the cause is so important.
Nadia is a Yazidi, a religious minority from northern Iraq. In the last 2 years, the UN's own report says ISIS has killed more than 5,000 Yazidis, and 3,200 of them are still captive.
They killed all the men in the village, 6 of my brothers. My mother was also killed. We didn't even get a chance to say goodbye.
Nadia herself was sold as a sex slave to an ISIS commander.
She has said they abused me 2 at a time until I fell unconscious. She was burnt with cigarettes. She just endured the most brutal acts known to humanity. I believe in international justice. I believe it's important that you don't just turn the page without people being held to account. It would be helpful if people thought that committing these crimes would lead to them being imprisoned.
There are those who would say ISIS doesn't need to be brought to court. ISIS needs to be bombed out of existence.
Well, I mean, there is a bombing campaign going on. The coalition forces, including the US and many other states, are going after ISIS on a military basis. That's part of the response, but it's not enough. I mean, you can't kill an idea that way. I think one of the ways to take action against that is to expose their brutality and their corruption, and partly you can do that through trials.
The most famous trials were those held in Nuremberg, when 21 high Nazis faced their accusers.
This is a question that comes up after every conflict, and it came up after the Second World War, after the Holocaust, and the victorious nations discussed, what are we going to do about this? And one idea was, well, let's just execute all the Nazis. And the Russians, I think, said, let's have a show trial because that's useful for propaganda. And it was actually the US that said, no, let's have proper trials and let's actually deal with this in the way that, is in line with our values and our standards, which is that people should be held to account for what they do.
Charged with mass crimes against humanity.
And when I've met Yazidi victims, they say they want their day in court as well.
I'm so sorry. I know you've all suffered great loss.
It's a big burden you're carrying, because I know some of the women who have talked to you have told you things that they have never said out loud before.
I've conducted the most harrowing interviews of my career. A lot of them are incredibly courageous and want to tell their story, want the world to know, and eventually would like the opportunity to say it in court and to face the perpetrators. We have had long interviews with very, very young victims where there are long silences, and everyone in the room, the interpreter, the witness, myself, just can't move and can't speak for a while. It has been, it's been really difficult to hear some of the testimony.
Nadia has become their voice.
They all said things like, she is the future, she is our only hope.
We know that even in the last few days, you've received new threats from ISIS.
Yes, I put my own life at risk, but I don't have a life without giving hope to other victims.
You've put your life at risk as well.
I don't think anyone can feel that they're being courageous compared to what Nadia is doing. It's no joke, this is ISIS. And they have sent her really specific threats saying, we will get you back. We shouldn't have let you go. You're one of the beautiful ones. We'll get you back, and this is a direct quote, we'll do everything to you. Nadia's also received death threats from ISIS through her nephew, who's one of the child soldiers that ISIS has taken. They're called the Cubs of the Caliphate. He was 11 when he was taken, and he's now completely brainwashed by ISIS and sends messages back to Nadia saying, you're an infidel, I don't want to return to the Yazidi community. I mean, this is what ISIS wants. they are brainwashing people, and I think one of the ways to take action against that is to expose their brutality and their corruption, and partly you can do that through trials.
Part of what you're trying to accomplish, though, is also to stop their effectiveness at recruiting. Part of this is aimed at an international audience, to say, before you sign up, join up, hear from these women what has happened.
Yeah, absolutely. As we know, there's a really large proportion of foreign fighters in ISIS, and I think one way of deterring future recruitment is going to be to hold trials and to actually expose what ISIS does in detail. And one of the amazing things that Nadia is doing is she's actually going to countries like Egypt, and she's meeting students, and she's saying to the students, if any of you are thinking of joining ISIS, let me tell you what ISIS does. And it's incredibly powerful to hear about one individual's experience. I think it helps people to make sense of it.
And what about you? How did you make this decision?
She made me make the decision because I met her and I just thought, I can't walk away from this.
You brought her home, I understand.
Yes, we sat on the floor for a couple of hours and just spoke about it.
And from then on, you knew you were going to do this?
Yeah.
No matter the price. And you know, it's not just you, it's your family.
You know, this is something I discuss with my husband before I would take on something like this. We did discuss it, and we are aware of some of the risks involved, of course.
So he blesses this.
He met Nadia too, and I think he was moved for the same reasons, and he understood. I mean, this is my work.
You gave a very powerful speech at the UN, not very diplomatic.
I wish I could say that I was proud to be here, but I'm not.
I did feel a sense of outrage.
I'm ashamed as a woman that girls like Nadia can have their bodies sold and used as battlefields. I'm ashamed as a human being that we ignore their cries for help.
It's been harrowing to hear the testimony of girls as young as 11 and 12 talk about what's happened to them. Still, we haven't been able to do anything about it. I think my speech was born out of a sense of outrage.
She hopes that Nadia's being named a Goodwill Ambassador by the UN on Friday will be a turning point in their quest for justice. What do you hope to give to the Yazidi people?
I would like to see justice to be done for Yazidis.
When I've asked people, what do you think of what Nadia is doing and what does she mean to you? They say, she's our mother, she's our sister, she's our voice, she's our hope. And it's a great responsibility, but I think what she's doing is amazing.
My real fear is that once ISIS is defeated, ISIS militants, ISIS terrorists will just shave off their beards and walk the streets of the cities as if nothing has happened. We cannot let this happen, so that I can be the last girl to come before you with such a story.
The courage of an Iraqi farm girl and the woman who is pledged to fight by her side. Cynthia McFadden, NBC News, New York.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.